A society that wants to remain stable often has to maintain a large working class at the bottom. Why? This isn't really a moral question, it's a question of mechanics. Society needs a mass of people constantly producing goods and services, then turning around to consume what they helped create. A crowd that spends most of its life, time, and energy on work. To keep the machine running, they must always feel a reason to move up, especially the promise of owning assets. But the system is often designed so that you can live better than the previous generation. More comfort than your parents, some travel, some entertainment, while core assets become harder and harder to reach, and so people work even harder, chasing a finish line that keeps moving. That's how the machine keeps growing and keeps running. Welcome to Unsaid Truths, where we talk about the things society would rather you didn't notice. Information, money, freedom, time, emotion, thought, and most importantly, the mechanism needs a crowd busy with survival. Busy enough that they don't have time to question the rules of the game. The system doesn't need too many rich people, but it also can't push the majority into total deprivation. Push people too far, and instability rises. So society is structured into layers, a middle tier, a lower tier, lives that are stable enough to prevent eruption, but limited enough to keep people running. In many heavily urbanized economies, especially where housing and assets rise faster than wages, you start to see entire generations opting out, lowering ambition, refusing the old deal, no longer believing that a lifetime of work will buy them a home. Popular culture reflects it too. Films and stories about inequality, debt, and class distance. That's pressure building beneath the surface. Here's the subtle part. People at the lower levels don't feel like tools. They're given just enough comfort to forget the exhaustion. Social media, entertainment, a few trips a year, enough to numb, not enough to stop, look deeper, and question the whole game. Society always needs the poor, because without a base, the pyramid can't stand. Look at history. Feudal elites controlled land and rented it out. Industrial capital owned machines and factories and hired labor. Modern financial capital owns cash flow, data, legal networks, technology, and can influence the breathing rhythm of entire classes. No matter the era, no matter the model, the bottom is usually large, replaceable, and weak at bargaining. Why? Because the mechanism is programmed to keep a critical mass of people from fully understanding the design. And why is it built that way? Because society isn't optimized for perfect fairness. It's optimized to manage instability. The crowd is both the force that sustains the system and the threat if it can't be contained. In the past, order was maintained through open violence, crushing revolt by force. Today, it's different. Modern control needs less of the whip because it has built a chain of behavior management that almost every social model relies on to stay orderly. To control humans, a highly intelligent species, raw violence is the last step. What works better is a reward-punishment framework, and above all, defining what counts as right and wrong, success and failure, competent and useless, accepted and rejected. Call it the rules of the game. Call it social norms. Inside that game, almost everything you do gets turned into a score, and the crowd doesn't need to know who wrote the rules. They only need to know, do A and you're loved, do B and you're a failure, do C and you're punished, do D and you're celebrated, money, status, a future. Make the rewards clear enough, broadcast them widely enough, and individuals will self-correct automatically into doing what the mechanism wants. Step 1. Standardize the mind with a social scoring system. The digital world creates an arena where the crowd develops reflexes to reward punishment lists applied at scale. Public thinking gets pushed into a template through evaluation criteria. Success means making this much per month. A man must own a house and a car. Marriage requires assets. You must consume. You must enjoy life. You must live fast. You must not waste your youth. When those standards are injected non-stop, people tend to spend what they earned, losing the base needed to accumulate and change position. Yet they still keep enough pressure, enough hunger, enough motivation to keep running. Definitions of success and failure don't only come from school or law, They're injected through entertainment and mass culture, game shows, films, television, social media. These aren't just distractions. They teach us how to think, how to love, how to live, how to spend, how to compete, without us realizing it. And when people fail, they usually blame themselves. I'm not good enough. Instead of asking the harder question, was the game designed so that most people lose? In that sense, modern entertainment can function like an anesthetic for awareness. The goal is to make the crowd never suspect it's being guided. Step 2. Make the crowd police itself. Once step 1 succeeds, once the norms are planted into the majority, the mechanism can step back, because the crowd becomes the enforcer of the rules. People measure themselves against the standard, then attack others to prove they're still qualified, still on the right side. That's when control becomes cheapest. No constant repression is needed because the crowd does the work for the mechanism. The crowd generates moral police, thought monitors, online courts. It builds an automatic scoring system through likes, reactions, shares, hearts, outrage. Followers become a measure of value. KPIs, ratings, bonuses become measures of a worker's worth. It's a digital psychology game. If you don't participate, you become invisible. And then people compete. Spending, pleasure, work, image, money. Most people believe they're free while actually living inside a conditioned reflex, shaped in advance. Mental slavery is slavery without chains, because the real chains are inside the mind. You're not as free as you think. You're only choosing the kind of chain that feels most comfortable. The most effective prisons are the ones where inmates watch each other. The rule breaker gets punished by the whole cell. No guard needs to show up. The crowd becomes the system's immune response. Resist, and you get isolated. Comply, and you get rewarded. Spotlight, promotion, a better life. But let's be clear. Rules, ethics, values, and social standards aren't entirely bad. They can shape a community, keep it from collapsing from within, and protect it from being swallowed from the outside. The key point is this. When you can no longer tell the difference between a framework you need to survive and a framework designed to manipulate you, society turns itself into a flock, guided but convinced it's free. Today isn't the era of being good. It's the era of being smart. Consumerism doesn't have to order you to buy specific things. It only has to paint a destination called success, create an ideal image, and then society will pressure itself. What to do, what to spend, how to live. Media doesn't command anymore either. It teaches people how to live, how to compete. And what society calls freedom, happiness, and civilization can become the perfect cover for a new kind of control. No hands on you, just direction. The boundary isn't in the law. The boundary is in awareness. Know what game you're playing? Know who wrote the rules, or more accurately, what mechanism the rules are designed to serve. Know whether the reward is real or just a carefully colored illusion that keeps you running. If you can't see that boundary, the more properly you live, the easier you are to use, serving goals that aren't yours. And that's why society always needs a large layer at the bottom. Not because it's evil, but because the mechanism depends on it. A crowd to hold up the pyramid above. A crowd that works, consumes, dreams, gets disappointed, and repeats the cycle. A crowd living inside the illusion of choice while playing a game whose rules were written in advance. The greatest danger isn't material poverty. The danger is not knowing you're hungry in the mind. Poverty isn't only a lack of money, it's the loss of the ability to question. That's why the mechanism can let you choose almost everything. Except two things: time to think and the perspective to see the whole game. Once the crowd accepts that being low class is a personal failure, your fault, your lack of ability, the mechanism becomes nearly permanent. The poor won't revolt. They'll only fight each other. They won't ask who wrote the rules or who's steering the direction. They'll only ask why they're still not as good as someone else. That's when the poor become society's most renewable resource. No chains needed, just a goal to chase. In this game, the more obedient you are, the easier you are to use. The more capable you are, the more efficiently you'll be exploited. So don't only ask, how do I escape poverty? Ask, who is defining poverty and whose game am I playing? Because if you didn't write the rules, then no matter how fast you run, you're still a pawn, moving in the direction someone else wants. Waking up isn't rebellion. Waking up is knowing the map, understanding the mechanism, and choosing the right way to play. Maybe what I'm saying today is hard to accept, but it's one lens for how society works, and how true it feels will depend on your experience. Escaping the trap of the social ecosystem. Why do you work hard and still never get rich? Here's the conclusion: the world doesn't need too many rich people. If everyone had upper-class wealth, there would be no one left to do the foundational work. Sanitation, operations, delivery, caregiving, waste collection. To keep society stable, the mechanism must ensure that most people never reach the financial destination they're promised. You might live better than your parents, but reaching the life of the very top is extremely difficult. And owning status assets, prime location housing, expensive cars, luxury brands, high-end watches can stay out of reach. Strangely, that distance is what keeps you working. Look at the life of an average person. Graduate around 22, retire around 60, about 38 working years. That's roughly 14,000 days inside the working age window. But once you subtract weekends, holidays, illness, family, commuting, entertainment, your actual earning days are closer to about 10,000. And here's the key. If you generate 1 unit of income per day, the lifetime maximum is about 10,000 units. If you generate 2 units per day, the lifetime maximum is about 20,000 units. But that's lifetime revenue, not wealth. Because most of it gets consumed by living costs, housing, transport, health, family, risk, and the small rewards you give yourself just to keep going. If you spend more than you accumulate, you can end up with nothing, even after working almost your entire life. And inflation almost always runs faster than wage growth for most people. So even if you're frugal, a lifetime of savings may only be enough for a down payment on a small home. The feeling of running but never arriving isn't always personal failure. It's the predictable outcome of a system designed to keep most people running. So people ask, how do you escape? The answer is position. Your position inside the ecosystem that distributes value. No matter how hard you work, if your income depends on hours, whether physical or intellectual, you're still limited by time and energy. In modern society, manual workers, farmers, factory workers, drivers, delivery workers earn through time and effort. But time is finite and your body weakens with age. When you can't work, income stops, and one health shock can push you back to zero. To survive, many people stretch the workday from 8 hours to 10, even 12. But more work doesn't mean you get rich. It usually just means you eat, maybe a little better than before. That's why so many people place their hopes on their children. They push them to study hard, to land a stable job, to avoid the struggle they went through. But even if their kids make it into a good university and become doctors, lawyers, teachers, do they become wealthy? Usually no. They've only moved from physical labor to mental labor, from shovels to scalpels, keyboards, and classrooms. But it's still the same exchange, trading time and energy for money. And time, as you already know, is always limited. The problem isn't personal effort, the problem is structure. You're standing in an unfavorable position inside the ecosystem that distributes value. Imagine society as a financial river, where value flows through different layers. At the bottom are people selling their labor, squeezed by time, aging, and illness. Higher up are people who don't need to be present all the time, yet money still flows in. They don't sell labor. They sell products, services, brands, or systems. And that's why the same cup of coffee can tell 2 completely different stories. If you brew it yourself and sell it cheap, you're selling your effort 1 unit of time at a time. But a franchise chain can charge far more and scale profits because they're not just selling coffee. They're selling experience, process, and a system. They can sell thousands of cups at once without being there. So the most sustainable way out of the poverty cycle isn't doing more, it's doing differently. You have to shift from selling time one-to-one to selling value one-to-many, creating something that can serve many people at once without being capped by your hours or your strength. That something could be a product, a service, a digital platform, a YouTube channel, an online course, or a business model that can keep running even when you're not present. It sounds big, but start with the simplest example. Take selling bottled water. If your profit per bottle is tiny, then to reach meaningful income, you'd need to sell tens of thousands of bottles. Alone, you can't do it. But if you build a distribution system, agents, affiliates, online marketplaces, then it becomes possible. Power is in scale, not in muscle, not in degrees. From here, you can see a simple principle that traditional systems often hide. Hard work is necessary, but it's not enough. You need smart work, and you need to understand how the value distribution ecosystem actually works. Because this society isn't designed to make you wealthy. It's designed to make you stable. A just enough salary, a just enough lifestyle, a multi-decade bank loan, a basic health insurance, a retirement plan for old age. All of it makes you feel taken care of. But in reality, you're placed inside a loop. Enough to survive, not enough to rise. And the most dangerous part is that this stability kills your drive to break out. It makes you fear risk, fear change, fear doing things differently. Then you teach your children to live the same way, and poverty, even in a respectable form, gets passed down generation after generation. So what's the solution? It's a shift in perspective. You stop seeing yourself as someone who just works to survive, and you start thinking like someone who creates value that can be multiplied. That's when you start learning sales, entrepreneurship, personal branding, finance, investing. You don't have to quit your job immediately, but you do have to lay the foundation for a second income system, one that isn't limited by your time and energy. Ask yourself, can you create a digital product? Can you start a channel and share knowledge? Can you sell something online? Can you build an affiliate or contributor network? Can you invest in something that produces cash flow? If the answer is yes, start. Small if you have to. Because the path you're on right now usually doesn't lead to freedom. And if you think this is only for the talented, the wealthy, the smart ones, then you're already trapped. It's not that the skilled can do it, it's that those who start become skilled. The world has changed. You no longer need permission to begin. You need internet, a phone, and the right mindset. The biggest barrier isn't credentials, capital, or background. It's how you see yourself. You can keep selling your labor, or you can begin selling value. You can keep trading time for money, or you can build a system where income keeps moving, even while you sleep. The choice is yours, but remember, time doesn't wait. If you've made it this far, this episode helped you. So give it a like, share it, and hit subscribe so we don't lose each other in the future. Because the next episode might give you the one perspective you needed to choose the right way to play.